all across CNY. It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, rolling along here on this Thursday. Been talking a lot of hoops, talking a lot of off-season hoops for Syracuse, but right now we are turning our attention to a team that is scorching hot right now. Folks, dare I say, Syracuse lacrosse appears like they might be back. For Syracuse lacrosse standards, that does take some postseason stuff, which they obviously can't do till later. But, man, they've looked good here. As Hopkins win, the Duke win a week and a half ago. I was like, whoa, they held Duke to 4 goals? Did this really just happen? Really impressive. And now they're off to South Bend, which has, it's been a house of horrors the last few visits out to South Bend. My goodness, it has not gone well in South Bend recently, but what a game. It should be Saturday, 2 o'clock, number 1 Notre Dame and number 3 Syracuse. Looking forward to that. We know Paul Carcaterra is always looking forward to seeing how Syracuse Lax does. Carc, welcome in. Man, we're talking Cuse here. I think the last time we talked was right around the Maryland game. It feels like they've kicked it into gear here the last month or so after that. They're looking pretty good right now.
They are. Dare you say, if that makes any sense. Yes, I think this team, you and I have talked before too. I firmly believed that Gary Gait would get this team and program back on track. And look, John Desko left in some really good young players, but I think Gary Gait's vision and the way that he sees the sport and the way that he's going to promote a certain type of offense and attract certain types of offensive players, I think the program's in unbelievable shape. I told people even when they were winning 3 games 2 years ago, they're going to get the last laugh. Gary Gait will. This guy's won at every single level he's ever been associated with the sport. He's the greatest player of all time. He's won championships as coaches throughout, multiple leagues, in the indoor and the pro form and the outdoor and the pro form. So Gary Gait just knows how to see the sport, and I think the pieces are finally coming together in year 3. And I was in the Dome. First time, Brian, as a spectator in like 20 years. Every time I'm up there, I'm calling a game. I was at the Duke game.
Okay.
I was doing some stuff with Charlotte North, and we're filming a piece on Gary Gait and Kayla Trainer in the morning. So I stuck around for the game, and it's an unbelievable experience as a fan too. It's truly the best venue in college lacrosse from a fan experience standpoint. I don't even think it's close. Like pre-game, I went into the 44 club. During the game, you feel like it's the closest thing to a pro atmosphere. The lights going off, the big scoreboard. So being there last week as a fan and watching the team that I love so much perform at that level and hold Duke to 4 goals, and Brennan O'Neill being the National Player of the Year and winning the Torton Trophy a year ago, it's really, really cool to see.
We may have had a misallocation of resources last Wednesday. Need to get Carc up in the booth for that game, and you saw the 4 goals against Duke. Like I thought, Duke Syracuse, and it turned out to be a blowout. But Duke Syracuse is always a 1-goal game. I'm like, yeah, it'll be 13-12, 14-13. To win a game like that and hold Duke to 4, that opened my eyes more than anything else we've seen all season. What does that tell you? I guess big picture about Cuse. We know the offense, but to win a game like that was startling to me in many ways.
Well, look, John Orderna, the first-year defensive coordinator, if you look at the stats from a year ago, they were allowing like 12 goals a game. They're only allowing 8 now. I think that his defensive system and his scheme has really simplified things for the players. And this is a unit, let's be honest, man. Defensive midfield-wise, they're really, really thin. They've lost a couple guys to injury. They're playing some young guys. And those are the guys that get picked on. I always equate like a defensive midfielder, a short-stick defensive midfielder to a cornerback in football playing one-on-one coverage in an island. Like, those are the guys every offense attacks. And he's supported that group. He's allowed them to grow. He's been creative with changing some guys into that spot. But I think his value to this team and his calming presence has been remarkable. I mean, you look at the stats. It's not like they played cupcake teams either. Like, they're playing Duke. They're playing Maryland. They're playing Johns Hopkins. They're playing Army. They're allowing 8 goals per game. But to hold Duke to 4, a team that was averaging 18 goals a game, I mean, that's incredible. So I think you're getting the offense from Pat March and Gary Gate, and the defense from John Orderna. I think everyone's on the same page. And I say all this based on the fact that I listened to you when you were coming to me. We're going out to South Bend, and it's going to be a very, very difficult task. If you are a Hughes lacrosse player, if you are a alum, if you are a fan, if you are a parent, you have nightmares thinking about Syracuse traveling to Arlotta, because the last few games have been absolute blowouts.
The game is starting. It's 8-0. Like, whoa, what just happened? Like, some of these games recently have been like, holy crap, what's going on here? Like, you're looking around the country, Carcaterra, and, the number one team in the country seems to lose. Like, they lose every week. I don't know how many weeks the number one team has lost this year. It feels like all of them. And Notre Dame has cycled back to the top, and they're the defending champs. Like, are they the best team in your mind right now? Is there a best team to you right now, or is it just it's turned into a big cluster at the top?
It's a bit of a cluster, but if I had to say one team right now, I would say Notre Dame, and there's a few reasons behind that. I think when they played Michigan, who just beat Maryland 2 weeks ago, Michigan traveled to South Bend. That was probably like the most complete lacrosse game of the season, I thought, from a top team. I also think they have the pieces, right? So they have Liam Entenmann. He was the championship game MVP a year ago. You have him on the defensive end, and the close defense isn't what it was last year, and they're missing Chris Fake, and they have some young guys there that I think are going to be spectacular. But you have him, and he's a steady force there. Riley Gray at the face-off X has been really, really strong statistically, his best season to date. And then you have the Kavanaughs. It's like they've been around for a gazillion years, whether it was Matt Kavanaugh and, now it's Pat and Chris. They have national championship pedigree. They know how to win. Pat's a quarterback. Chris is a goal scorer. But the piece that I think that makes him so difficult is their inside presence with Jake Taylor. I think he's the best crease attackman in the country. And he's such a good finisher when you put him in the inside, flanked by the Kavanaughs. But I also just think that he's so smart that even when he doesn't get the ball and when he doesn't score, he's kind of the conductor in the middle of that offense, and he gives the space for everyone else to dodge. And they've got some playmakers. I mentioned the Kavanaughs. They have Eric Dobson, who's a preseason first-team All-American. Jordan Faison's the best freshman midfielder in college lacrosse. He was the MVP of the Sun Bowl for Notre Dame football as a slot receiver, as a true freshman. He's now a midfielder for the Fighting Irish. So Syracuse has their hands fuller than full dealing with this offense. I think Syracuse can score some goals, but holding to a team like Notre Dame to 4 like Duke, that's not going to happen. Like, that's not going to happen again. You just hope that the simplified defense by John Orderna protects the paint, because that's where Syracuse has really been exposed in these blowouts. As much as Pat Kavanaugh has gone nuts for close to 9 points a game in the last 3 or 4 games, it's the inside of that defense that's been totally exposed with Jake Taylor in terms of his spacing, but also just the cutters. And if you watch the tape, it hasn't just been a Pat Kavanaugh show, him isolating defenders and going to work. They dissected and gutted the defense.
Jake Taylor, I think it was the game 2 years ago in South Bend, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. He was basically right off the injured list. Nobody knew who this guy was, and he scored 8 goals. It's like, what the hell just happened?
Exactly.
It's like, who's this? It was like, who's this guy that's starting? I've never heard. He's got 4 goals already. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. But you mentioned the Kavanaughs. Syracuse defending them. Like Riley Figueres last year as a freshman. He's wearing the 11. He missed the year hurt. He's been excellent this year. Billy Dwan has been absolutely eye-opening this year. He's been fantastic. What do you make of those two as a top defensive pairing? I'd say in general for Syracuse, one, Carc, and then specifically in this matchup on Saturday.
I think this duo, Figueres and Dwan, gives Syracuse a lot of flexibility. And why I say that is because I think Figueres will defend smaller, quicker attackers, and Billy Dwan will guard the bigger guy. Like Billy Dwan's guarding Brennan O'Neill. He held him to 1 goal, 1 assist last week in the Dome. He's probably going to guard C.J. Kirst, who's a battering ram, a big attackman from Cornell. The quicker, faster guys will probably go to Figueres. So I think as a defensive coordinator, John O'Derna has flexibility in terms of his matchup. A lot of teams have a 1, and maybe that 1's big, and he plays really big guys well, but the shorter, quicker guys give him some trouble. It's almost like O'Derna has 1 and 1A with Figueres and Dwan, and he has the flexibility to figure out who he wants to defend in what spot. I would venture to say Figueres would guard Pat Cavanaugh, who's the quarterback of the team. He's smaller and quicker. Chris Cavanaugh's more of a physical player. He's a right-handed dominant player. Billy Dwan's a lefty, so I think that fits well. Lefty guarding a righty when you get to the top side of goal line extended. It's just a natural fit. And Figueres, who's a righty, will guard will guard Pat Cavanaugh, who's a natural righty but goes left-handed too. So I think there's a lot of flexibility with John O'Derna in these matchups, which is what you want as a defensive coordinator. I think this is a young duo. Figueres is only a redshirt freshman. Dwan's a true sophomore. And these guys are going to be a backbone of Syracuse's defense for the next few years, and it gives Orange fans a ton of hope. In terms of that side of the field, which you feel like, I don't need to tell you, you've been covering this long enough, that side of the field's been highly exposed over the last bunch of years. So to play really good defense, it's like, take a deep breath. Okay, Syracuse is going to be fine when they're in tight spots on that side of the field, which you didn't get that feeling in prior years.
Yeah, that's not been the case in, 4 or 5 years now, where you felt, great in a situation about getting a stop, and that certainly turned around this year for sure. Paul Carcaterra is with us. All right, Carc, I'm thinking big picture of this season. We go back to the beginning of the year, and it's like, okay, well, what's a successful year for Syracuse? You got to get back to the playoffs. The hope is you do some damage. Maybe, like, if it all comes together, you can make the Final Four. I've watched now. You watch close games against Maryland and Army. Now you got over the hump against Hopkins, so you clear a mental hurdle. You blow out Duke. We'll see what happens this week. And I'm not saying Syracuse is the favorite by any means at this point, but do you have to put Syracuse in the mix of national title contenders here? It feels like the Orange, they look the part and they fit in with the group right now.
Yes, I do think they look the part based on, everything we're discussing on the defensive end. But you also have guys who can give your offense the ball, and Mason Cone and Johnny Mullins. Johnny Mullins, mark my words here, Brian, he's a freshman face-off guy from Massachusetts. By next year at some point, at latest junior year, I think he's going to be the elite face-off specialist in college lacrosse. I think he was an absolute steal for Syracuse in terms of getting him to commit and play for the Orange, and to learn under a guy like Mason Cone and to get your reps. I equate it to like Alabama running backs, right? Like you get these running backs, and year one you sit a little bit and you preserve some tread on the tire. The best thing that's happening to Johnny Mullins long term is that Mason Cone also faces off. So like he is not banging up his body early in his career. So I think that 1-2 punch, and then Will Mark and goal. The last 3 games he's been at 71%. Yep. So if you can control the middle of the field with those 2 face-off guys, and if one's having a rough day, you go to the other. And you got Will Mark in this defense. So yeah, you have pieces that you didn't have. The one thing that I would say moving forward for Syracuse that I think is critical is that they continue to have these dodging presence offensively from a one-on-one standpoint, because they move the ball beautifully well, and it's tic-tac-toe a lot of times, but I think teams late in the season will probably be slow to go and slow to slide and to support the Dodgers of Syracuse. They're almost going to dare them to beat their defense one-on-one. So I think as long as Jake Stevens and Sam English and Michael Leo and Luke Rowe, if they can get things going from the midfield from a dodging perspective, that will elevate their offense moving forward. They have to have playmakers at the midfield that would give the attack these opportunities to score, because the attack is very, very skilled. I think midfield production from a dodging perspective will ultimately be the the telltale of everything offensively for this team.
Yeah, and that does bring me to Joey Spallina here, Kark. Obviously he's having a fantastic season in many ways, and also there's just you can't imagine how much pressure's on this kid and how much hype and all the thing that goes into it. So, what do you make of Joey here? On one hand, he's having a great season. On the other hand, the expectations are for him to be the best player in the sport. How do you view it all through the lens of what you see for Joey here in his sophomore year?
I think Joey is an extremely skilled lacrosse player. His IQ's off the charts. He's so smooth with the stick. He makes all the right decisions. And honestly, I was really impressed with him at Duke that he didn't press the way that, some players would. If you're not getting your touches, if you're not owning your matchup right away, sometimes you feel like you need to do more. I think he's playing in the confines of the offense. There are days where the team is going to need him to have 6 and 7 points. He was incredible, I thought, in the Hopkins win. He had some huge plays in that monster win. There's been some games where Maryland, Ajax Zapatello, he's going to get everyone's one. He's going to get Kenny Brower from Duke. These are high-end first-team All-American type defenders who are, seniors and fifth-year seniors. Joey's a true sophomore. When I think of the pressure of Joey Spallina and wearing number 22 and everyone expecting him to be the best player in the country, whose expectations are that? Like, my expectations are that Joey, at some point in his career, will certainly be a Tewaaraton Trophy finalist caliber player, and I think he's definitely one of the better offensive players in the country right now. But I think people just assume because he's the number one recruit and he wears number 22 that he has to be Gary Gait or Mikey Powell. I think people should just allow Joey Spallina to be Joey Spallina, and if the offense is clicking and it's scoring goals and they're winning, whether Joey gets the 6 to 8 points or the 2 points because he's taking someone out of a matchup and everyone else is eating and feasting because of him, as a Syracuse fan, you should be happy with that and celebrate the fact that this kid has gone through the microscope from day one. Everyone knew about this kid. Everyone knew about him. Everyone knew about Brennan O'Neill. And the weight of the world, you feel like, is pressing on these kids' shoulders. But in actuality, these guys want to be great. Joey wants to be great. I think the pressure that Joey puts on himself is bigger than any pressure he's going to read in a chat room or a Twitter feed. So I think he has the right perspective. His dad's a coach. He's got a mentor in Coach Gary Gait that understands that, this is a 4-year journey for him, and as long as they are winning and they're 9-2 right now, and the offense is clicking and scoring a ton of goals, some days it's not going to be his day. And I think part of the maturation process around that, as you could tell by his body language, you could tell by the way he played at Duke, he was okay with that last week, not scoring, six goals or having 8 points because the offense was winning and it was a 10-4 win. And that shows me a lot of maturity because I don't feel like he pressed and I don't feel like he's played selfish when things haven't gone his way. And that's kind of where I'm impressed with the most when it comes to him.
Yeah, I mean, Kark, you get that 22 and top recruit, like a ton comes along with that, and he's handled it well. He's handled it well so far midway through his sophomore year. All right, Kark, I mean, obviously Notre Dame Cuse is the game of the weekend. Any other games you got your eyes on here? This Carolina Army game looks intriguing. Hopkins, Michigan, Penn State, Maryland. What's popping to you this weekend?
Carolina Army's interesting because Carolina, I don't know if you saw the end of that High Point game, was one of the best finishes ever. Brandon Maillet with a behind-the-back pass with 20 seconds left. High Point beats North Carolina. North Carolina now, with the loss to High Point, if they lose to Army, they're staring at their remaining 4 games, all ACC games, and they're going to be the underdog in all those games. So Carolina's season is essentially on the line every week moving forward. So I think that one's interesting. I also think the game that I'm calling, Michigan-Hopkins, is super interesting, too, because I feel like the winner of this game will be in a great spot to be kind of in pole position with the winner of Penn State-Maryland that's this weekend as well, too. So Michigan's only beaten Hopkins once in program history. They've been playing since 2013. So, Michigan has struggled against the Blue Jays. But Michigan also, last year, Hopkins hosted the Big Ten Championship Michigan celebrated on that field and won the Big Ten, so they have the confidence, I think, moving forward. This is going to be an incredible April. It's going to be incredible May because we have so many teams that realistically can win it. And everyone's shown that they're not invincible. As much as I think Notre Dame might be the best team right now, they had a clunker of a game against Georgetown earlier in the season. They showed that they're vulnerable. They showed that when they don't play their best, they can be beaten. And that was a game for Georgetown that kind of turned around their season early when they had some early season woes. So I feel like this season is so intriguing because anyone who tells you they know who the favorite is, it's really not true. There's 8 teams legit that could win a national title, but at the end of the day, if there's one team that I think the sport of lacrosse can rally around if they get to championship weekend, it's Army. They were number 1 in the nation a week ago. They lost to BU in an upset game in Boston last Friday night. If Army could get to championship weekend, how crazy would that be? The Black Knights of the Hudson playing on Memorial Day weekend. Your Army, you have the whole country kind of rallying behind you. They were number 1 until last week, so that piece has me really kind of intrigued and fired up for an upstate guy in Joe Alberici, who's from Auburn. Yeah. He's the head coach.
20 years after Navy made it, Cark. So that would be quite a story from their trip back 20 years ago. Yeah, it'll be wild if they make it. All right, Cark, always great to talk. Lax season's really heating up. I'm sure we'll do it again soon, my friend.
No problem. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
All right, there he goes, Paul Carcaterra. Always great to talk to. Always great to talk, Lax, with Cark. We could keep on going, but we do have other things to do on the show today. Phone lines will be open when we come back at 315-437-7644. In this hour, brought to you by William Attar. Hurt in a car. Call William Attar at 444-4444. Well, everyone panic. Yankees season's over already. 4-0 in the third. Fire everybody. Start next year. We'll take a break. We can talk baseball, talk lax, talk hoops, whatever you want when we come back. After this, a visit with Orange linebacker Derek McDonald comes our way in hour 2. We're back after this. It's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.